Hello. And I have something for you to think about. Imagine that you're standing at the base of El Capitan, the iconic granite monolith in Yosemite. It's towering 3,000 feet above you. It has tested the limits of some of the world's best climbers. Now, picture yourself not as a lifelong athlete or an extreme sports enthusiast. Instead, picture yourself as a 66-year-old woman who'd only been climbing for a few years. Would you even dare to dream of reaching the top? Well, Dierdre Wolownick did. At an age when many start to slow down, Dierdre decided to push herself in ways few would even consider. Not only did she become the oldest woman to climb El Capitan, she did it in a single day, alongside her son, legendary climber Alex Honnold. But her story doesn't start or end on that rock face. Her story is about defying expectations, creating opportunities, and discovering just how much we're capable of at any stage of life. Dierdre's story is now featured in the documentary Climbing into Life and captured in her memoir, The Sharp Edge of Life. And today we are diving into her incredible story, why she climbed, what she learned, and how, after years of feeling boxed in by an unhappy marriage, she found the courage to truly live on her own terms. So stay with us, because this conversation just might inspire you to take on your own mountain, whatever it may be. Welcome to Boomer Banter, the podcast where we have real talk about aging well. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host. And before I introduce you to Dierdre, I want to offer you a blueprint for aging well, one that's packed with smart strategies to boost your finances, enrich your relationships, enhance your health, and help you find purpose. The Thriving Through Time newsletter gets you these powerful, actionable insights every week. It's your personal guide to unlocking a more vibrant, confident you. So don't miss out on this transformative newsletter. Subscribe today and start enriching your life immediately. You'll be kicking yourself if you don't. So sign up. Go to bit.ly/navigate-aging. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dierdre. Well, she's going to have to help me with this again. Dierdre Wolownick. I think that was right. She has award-winning writings, including the memoir titled A Sharp End of Life, that's been published around the world. Dierdre is a retired language professor. She's also been an orchestra conductor, a musician, well, she still is a musician, a marathoner, a publisher, and mother of 2 extreme athletes. At 60, Dierdre started rock climbing. And as I said, she's the oldest woman to climb Yosemite's El Capitan with her son, Alex, who you may remember from the Oscar-winning documentary Free Solo. The 2024 documentary about Dierdre and her life, called Climbing into Life, has won awards in film festivals across the country. And Dierdre recently released a new book titled Success in 7 Steps. I'm so grateful that Dierdre was able to join us today. Let's welcome her to Boomer Banter. Okay, help me. I've said it wrong a couple of times now.
Everyone does. It's Dierdre Wolownick.
Wolownick. Okay, y'all, remember that. Dierdre Wolownick. Okay. I'm so sorry. So,
It's okay.
Dierdre, as I read your book, I was so impressed with how you continued to pursue your interest while raising 2 children and navigating a pretty dysfunctional marriage. I mean, it sounded a lot like you were a single mom, even though you were married.
I was, yeah.
Right. So how did you keep yourself motivated and feel supported while you were in this unsupported environment?
That's a tough question because I was raised in an unsupportive environment, so that's
Mm.
all I had ever really known,
Uh-huh.
and so when I find myself in one, you know, as a married woman, it was, "Here we go again," "Same old, same old." I knew how to deal. This was different, of course, but I knew how after my childhood, I knew how to talk to myself, keep myself motivated. I didn't need other people to do that for me, you know? I had learned that as a child. So I guess that's kind of answers your question.
Yeah, it's just was like you're starting the orchestra, right? Like you had to be out of the house
Yeah,
and put
yeah.
so much time and energy into that and trust that your husband was going to watch the kids. That was a
Right.
challenge too.
That was the major challenge of that endeavor. I mean, I knew I could conduct. I had taught myself all my life. I had been a student of music all my life and a performer of music all my life. And so, I mean, I didn't have any paper credentials or anything, but I knew I could do it. And we moved into a place where all of a sudden, the universe, plopped this opportunity down on my lap, and I said, "Okay, well, this is it." We lived in a place that had no culture of any kind, no stores, no entertainment, it just houses. And my children were, 1 and 3, 2 and 4. I didn't wanna raise them in that kind of environment,
Mhm.
and I knew I could do this, and so I approached the Chamber of Commerce, and they thought it was a great idea, and so they I launched it.
Wow. I mean, that's such amazing inner confidence. I mean, that really
Yeah.
inspires me, just that part of the story alone. But then you didn't start climbing until you were 60, right?
Yeah, I was turning 60, yeah.
So had you been an athlete before that?
No, not really. I mean, when I grew up, this is back in this big city, New York, and after the war, all the kids played outdoors all the time. We were never home. We were
Right.
always out on our bikes, on our roller skates, out on the street, climbing trees, climbing lampposts, things like that. But climbing as a sport didn't exist yet, except among rock climbers in Europe, that kind of thing. But we weren't athletes, we were just active. Back then, that was normal. All kids lived like that, active lives outdoors. We played stickball, we played, we're active. So, no, I was never an athlete per se, but I was always very active, riding my bike and, ice skating in the winter, roller skating, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it wasn't that unusual, you know?
But it was quite adventurous, quite a
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
challenge.
Oh, yeah, climbing is a different world for sure.
Yeah. And so obviously, well, I say obviously, but I would think it was because of Alex that you decided to first try this, right?
So, my son was born a climber. He was a climber from the day he was born, literally. I mean, he could stand up the day he was born, which is absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't stay standing, obviously, he was a newborn, but he could get himself vertical. He had huge hands and he had powerful thighs. He was born to climb. And so that's all he ever wanted to do, all he ever craved. He was not interested in any other sports. That's all he ever wanted to do. And so he started doing that as he grew older, like 10, 11, 12. He started going out to gyms and stuff and then outdoors. And I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know what climbing involved. I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't because I was busy, as you said, being a single mom. I was in effect a single mom of 3, one of whom was never gonna grow older, gonna
Yeah.
grow up. He was probably autistic, and he had nothing to do with anybody, and he just so I was the only adult in the room.
Yeah. It sounded like it.
So I couldn't take Alex to the gym. Somebody had to take care of the household. Somebody had to, do the food and the cleaning and all that stuff. That was me. So I didn't experience what Alex was living for those, teenage years. So I had no clue. When he'd leave the house on his expedition, eventually he got some sponsors and he was going out on expeditions, and I'd see magazines that come to the house with my son on the cover doing things that I would look at and I'd say, "No, I must be understanding that wrong. That can't be what he's doing."
I don't want that to be what he's doing.
Exactly, exactly. As a mom, I didn't want that to be true. So I wanted to find out firsthand what it consisted of, and especially how they kept themselves safe.
Yes. Yes, because that was the big concern you had.
Yes, it was, and I'd see these walls that he was climbing and think, "Oh my goodness, how do they do this? How do they keep themselves safe?" So I wanted to find out. So I started going to the climbing gym. I had Alex take me to the climbing gym one time while he was injured slightly. He had an arm thing and he couldn't climb, but he could belay. He could hold the ropes for me, and as I
Ah,
I had him take me to the gym, show me how to put the harness on. The harnesses are not obvious. It took me a long time to figure out how to get this stupid harness on and what all the straps were for and how they attach. And he showed me how, and I got on my first wall. But back then, I mean, I'm from New York City. A lot of my friends lived in big apartments, many, many stories tall, and I've been in many skyscrapers. I've been in the World Trade Center, and I knew that if I looked out over the edge, my stomach would roil, and I took that to mean I was afraid of heights.
mhm,
So
mhm.
a lot of people say, "Oh, you could never climb. I'm afraid of heights." It's not the height you're afraid of, not the height itself. It's falling off that height.
Falling. Yeah.
And when that goes away, when you're tied into a rope and you know that the strongest climber in the world is at the other end of your rope, holding it, controlling it, seeing that you don't fall. Well, that goes away.
Yeah, but still, Deirdre,
But
in your
still but
book
still but still, I know, but still.
and in
Once
your
you're on a
book,
2,000-foot wall, that doesn't go away, but
right, you still talked about some of the mind games that you
yes.
had to
Oh, yeah,
play
yeah,
to overcome those fears.
right. Mhm.
Oh, I
The first
mean,
mind game, though, was in the gym that first day, like, just 40 feet, going up 40 feet from the floor. 40 feet, when you've never done that, is really high. 40 feet, I mean, get on a 10-foot ladder and it seems high, but go up 40 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It took some
And
talking to myself.
do you need a lot of upper body strength to
No. No, that surprised me. Climbing depends mostly on your legs and your thighs, of course, are the strongest part of you,
Mhm.
the most powerful part of you. And so you climb mostly using your feet. You use your feet to propel yourself upwards, and then you use your hands for balance, equilibrium, or to push yourself in a different direction. Or,
Ah,
you know, it, once in a while, yes, you have to pull, really pull. But
or
so seldom,
push.
or push, but it's so seldom that I could do it. I mean, I've got these little chicken arms. I've got no muscles in my upper body, none whatsoever, but I didn't then. Well, more so now, but I didn't then. And I was very surprised to learn that that's not where climbing takes place, and that's the difference between male climbers and female climbers.
Oh,
A guy
really?
a guy will get on the ropes the first time, and he powers himself up the wall, pulls himself up. He's doing pull-ups all the way up, and then he wears out.
Ah,
Women don't do that because they don't have that upper body stuff. So
interesting.
they learn other strategies, other ways to push yourself up the rock, And so, yeah, it's a very different approach to climbing, male and
That's
female.
interesting. So tell me about your climb up El Cap with your son. Like, why did you do that? And what was that like in one day?
Yeah, that's the hard part, the one day part. Why I did it? Well, I had been going to El Cap for many many years, and before I was married, before I had kids, and we used to take the kids there, and I had seen all these little dots going up, moving up the wall oh so slowly it seemed, and I'd seen them, and I wondered, wow, I wonder what you see from up there.
Mm,
I wonder what it's like to be hanging on the wall there, 2,000 feet up.
gosh.
And I wonder what it's like to sleep up there.
No.
I always wondered about those things, and then my son started climbing, and he, his friend, they're always talking about, "Oh, cap this and oh, cap that. We did this and that," and I was so curious to understand, what drives them to do this, and how they do it, and is it possible for someone else who's really not a climber per se, to do this? And so I was really curious. So one day I asked him, I had, he had, once a year for my birthday, Alex takes me climbing. And he
Oh,
started that, the year I started climbing, back in whenever that was, when
right.
I was 60 years old, and I'm now 73, so 13 years ago. So he started that, and it's a wonderful birthday present. It's a memory I'll have. Like behind me, you can see those are most of the peaks I've done with my son.
Yeah.
But so it was an um, amazing way to train, if you will,
To
and I
climb with him, other
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 and I've
And
gotten
but
respect
to
for
go
that.
did you know you were gonna do it in a day when you started?
No, no, oh, heck no. Well, yes and no. So I asked him if, like, 6 years later after I'd started climbing, I asked him, "You think because he had just done his amazing climb,
His
ropeless
free
climb up
solo.
El Capitan, which, I still can't wrap my mind around that, but he did that, and then, a few months later, like, a few weeks later, I asked him, "You think there's any chance that someday" I really should expect him to say yes, because he knows how I climb, and I'm no great shakes of a climber. I never will be. I started late. I'm not very strong. I don't have the head for it to just go for it, And so, I asked him, and, "Any chance you could get me up El Cap? I wanted the experience to see what it was like." And he didn't bat an eye. He said, "Yeah, sure, but you have to learn how to jug." And then he left on another expedition. Well, I didn't know what jugging was. I had heard the term. I didn't know what it meant. So I set about to find out, and I started finding out. Oh, can I
Oh.
do that? Then I started using the method that's in my new book. Everything I've done, all the accomplishments of my life. I mean, I've done many different kinds of things in life, and I've always approached it this way, and this is the method I've set out in my new book. Anybody can do this. I used to laugh when Alex, when he was a kid, a teenager, doing he would get interviewed, and he'd say, "Well, it's no big deal." He was known among other climbers as "No Big Deal Honnold," because he would say things like, well, they would interview him about some extraordinary feat that he just accomplished, and they would say, "Well, it's no big deal. Anybody can do this." And everybody would laugh and shrug and roll their eyes, but it's true. Anybody can do anything if you approach it right. If you have a method that will get you there little by little. And that's what my latest book is about, that method. I've used it as a conductor, as a publisher, as a public speaker, as an internet, what do you call a multilingual tour guide, driving and giving tours in 4 different languages. I've used it all my life, and I know it works. And so does he. He's used these same 7 steps that are in my book. He's used them all his life. He didn't know it. He didn't put it into words like I did in my book. But so I started training that way, following my own method. And son of a gun, 3 months later, he took me up El Cap in a day. The original climbers who set up that route that we did
Yeah.
took 5 days to do it.
Oh my gosh.
And
It's so
most of
it wasn't just up, Deirdre. It was
no,
up
but
and
you have
back
to go back
down
down. Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
the dark.
Right in the pitch dark. Yeah, yeah. It
Oh my
was it
gosh.
was quite the adventure.
Oh my gosh. But I remember one section in your book where you were starting running and you came home and you said, "Oh, I ran a mile today." And Alex said,
Yeah,
"Oh, good. If you ran a mile, you can run a mile and a half."
exactly. That
So
is the key to everything.
we're gonna have to have you back to talk about
Yeah,
that other book.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, I'd be happy
yeah,
to. It's so important. People think that, "Oh, I can't do this because" and we're bombarded from cradle to grave with all these messages about why you can't do such and so. If
mhm.
you're this gender, you shouldn't be doing this. If you are this weight or you're too skinny or too fat or whatever it is, you shouldn't be doing this and that. Nonsense. absolute nonsense. Turn off that stuff. It's so detrimental to our psyches.
Yeah.
Turn off that stuff and just go do it. You need a method. And I have that now. It's in black and white in my book. You can do whatever you dream of doing. Look at Diana Nyad. Have you seen the
Oh,
movie?
that's right. Oh my gosh, yes. What a
She always
phenomenal.
dreamed of
Yes.
doing that, always dreamed of it all
And
her
she
life.
never gave up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like me in the orchestra. I always wanted to conduct an orchestra. I knew
Yeah.
I probably never would because I didn't have the credentials. I didn't done the training. But you wait around for the universe long enough and then
That's
you put
right.
this method into effect, you can do anything.
Yep. That's so true. So tell me what you have learned about yourself through climbing.
Oh, where to start? Oh, goodness. That is a whole hour's worth of talk.
Uh, okay.
So much. I mean, I had no clue that I could do this. I mean, I believed a lot of like the most primal message in my life. I grew up in a house filled with cigar and cigarette smoke all the
Mm.
time. All the time. I mean, you had to wave away to watch television. It was horrible. And so I knew, quote unquote, I knew that I couldn't do anything that involved regular deep breathing because I couldn't. If I getting up out of my chair and I would huff and puff.
Oh boy.
But the alveolar sacs that line the lungs, once they pop, once they're gone, they don't regenerate ever. So, and I had learned all about this. I had informed myself as I grew because it's horrible not being able to breathe. It feels like you're drowning.
Yeah.
And so I knew this about myself. So I figured, well, I can't run. I can't, I can't swim. I can't. Well, nonsense. No matter how physical this limitation you think you have is. I mean, there are climbers out there who have no feet or have one leg, and there are blind climbers. If you want the first step in my book, I lay it out very simply. It's not a how to feel good kind of book. It's a hands-on, how to book, step by step. And the first step in any goal, changing any dream into a very accomplishable goal, the first step is you have to want it badly enough.
Mm.
Have to want it badly enough. If you allow yourself to be talked out of it, you didn't want it badly enough.
You're
If you
so
allow the
right.
media to tell you what to do rather than what you know you can do, you didn't want it badly enough.
Mm-hmm. You're so
So,
right.
yeah.
It's like starting this podcast. Same thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like, huh, I didn't have any experience in this. So yeah.
Mhm.
Which is why we are both in that Women to Lead
Exactly.
recognition thing that just came out, which was quite an honor.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to when you were being mom for the two kids, and that was really, at least what I got out of your book, was that was really your big purpose in life, was to be
Yeah.
the best mom for them that you could be.
Right.
How has that purpose changed now that they've grown up and they've got their own lives and now you've got your life? How has that purpose changed?
It hasn't changed. It's always been the same purpose to be, how do I put that? To be truly who I am. And back then, 20, whatever, 40. Oh, wow, 40 years ago.
I know, it goes faster than
My daughter's turning 42 this year. Yeah, oh my goodness.
I
But
know.
anyway, back then, my purpose was to be true to myself as a mom, as a mother. Okay. And that purpose has stayed the same, to be true to yourself. This is the oldest human advice that we have record of. Like 6,000 years ago, it was carved on buildings. Know thyself. Socrates, was it 6,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago? Socrates taught, in Greece, ancient Greece, know thyself. That was his main first bit of advice. You have to know who you are. And that's in my book as well. Oh, it's step 2. You have to know exactly who you are. Because if you don't know, like if I had not known that I could follow through with a plan like to create an orchestra. I mean, just create an orchestra. How do you do that? How to create an orchestra? Well, what do you need to know? What do you need to have? What do you need to do? You have to know those things. If I had been unsure of whether I could follow through on all these things myself with no support at home, no training. No, that if I had not been sure who I was, know thyself, I would not have been able to do that because I had no support. The only thing my husband ever said about the orchestra was something like, "Don't you have enough to do?" You know, he didn't. So know thyself. I mean, so my purpose has not changed ever. Know yourself. Know what you're capable of. Know what you can do. Know what you want. And that's
So
know
there's your
thyself.
purpose.
Socrates said it in 2 words, know thyself. That's the oldest bit of human advice and the most important.
But the fact that, I mean, what's so inspiring as I listen to you is the fact that you knew that at a young age,
Yeah,
in spite of all of the challenges you were facing at home.
yeah. Well, I was forced to learn that really, really young, you know, growing up the way I did.
I guess. I mean, because I think back, I know I gave in a lot to being a people pleaser. You do what, yeah,
Do what you're taught to do,
you
what
do
the
what you're
media
taught to
teaches
do.
you to do, what the adults around you teach you to do. And it takes guts to think that through. It takes the guts and a lot of method. And there, there's that method again. We always come back to
Yeah.
that.
And some of us get there sooner than others, So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's inspiring.
But it's
So,
never too late. That's the important part too.
you know what?
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. It's never too late. And as you said, you just keep trying. You just keep moving
right,
forward.
right, right.
You don't listen to those
Those
word
naysayers.
those
Yeah,
naysayers.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a lot of naysayers when I would go back to the college. I was teaching a community college. I'd go back on Monday after one of my expeditions with my son. I'd go climb one of those things behind me, one of those peaks.
Right.
And we'd come back on Monday. We'd all hang out in the hallway. What'd you do this weekend? Oh, I went to the market. Oh, we're doing a new floor in my house. What did you do, Deirdre? and I and they'd roll their eyes and they'd say things like, "Deirdre, you're too old to be doing.
Oh
Deirdre, you're
gosh.
going to get hurt. Deirdre, that. And that all comes from the media
That's right. That's
and
right.
the adults who have already ascribed to that media and they believe it firmly. Oh, Deirdre, you're going to get hurt. Not if you train properly. Oh, Deirdre, you're too old. No, I'm not. Who said so? Who
Right.
said so? You know?
And you had to overcome that even when Alex was younger, and you would
Yeah.
say you would
Yeah.
climb things at the playground and other mothers would
Yes. Oh,
scold
yes.
you for it or pull their kids away.
Yeah. Yeah. We were pariahs in the in the play areas of the playgrounds.
So
As
so talk to me about the fear though. I mean, I know you had some fear watching
Yeah.
Alex do stuff, and you had your own fear when you started climbing. How did you overcome that?
In any goal, there's a lot of fear because when you embark on a new adventure, a new goal, a new thing you want to do, whatever it is, whatever you call it, there's a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of unknowns, and fear comes from not knowing. Fear comes from not knowing enough. That's why the first step in my book is find out everything that you need to know about your goal. Because
Mhm.
people talk about dreams. Oh, I'd love to write a book someday. I'd love to run a marathon. Yeah, they'd go out and buy running shoes, and then they say, I'm going to start running this Monday right before work. And that doesn't work. They don't know enough yet. You have to find out everything you can find out about your goal in order to conquer it or in order to achieve it, whatever you want to call that. And if you don't know enough, that's what leads to frustration and quitting.
Mhm.
You go out and start running on Monday morning, and on Tuesday you're sore,
Mhm.
and Wednesday you
Mhm.
can't get up from your chair. And
That's
then
right.
you try it again on Thursday, and then you go, and then like 3 weeks later, you say to yourself, "Jeez, this is too hard. I can't do this." And
Mhm.
your running shoes become your gardening shoes, whatever.
Yeah.
That's why we quit because we don't know enough.
And I think also if we don't have our own inner confidence, like you've had a lot of
Yeah,
inner
yeah. But that
confidence
but
too.
that the confidence comes from knowing more.
Mm.
You know, fear comes from not knowing. Confidence comes from knowing.
I think that's True, and social relationships too, a lot of
It's
the
true in anything in life. If you watch the movie, my son's movie, the first
the
time he attempted to go up El Cap ropeless, he stopped. I don't know if you remember that. He quit. He bailed. They call it bailing. He bailed off the climb. Um, it was embarrassing to him. He hated doing it, but he knew, right? He knew at that point that he didn't know enough yet.
Mhm.
And if you try to accomplish a goal when you don't know enough, especially on a thing like El Cap, you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, right.
you're gonna die. You're
Yeah,
gonna hate yourself. You're gonna fail, whatever the goal is, and you're gonna fail. You're gonna your running shoes are gonna become your gardening shoes because you don't know enough. That has to be step number one. I divide the book is 7 steps, and each one of those 7 steps fits into one of 3 categories. And the 3 main categories, you cannot achieve any goal without this. First, you have to what you what what you need to know. And that has to be complete before you start moving on to the others. Second is what you need to have. You have to have the right gear. You have the right kinds of shoes. You have to have the right nutrition. You have to have the right this, that. So if you don't know enough about that, you're not going to run a marathon. You're going to quit. And the third is what you need to do. And doing is last. First, you have to find out what you need to know. And that's where most of us fail. We
mhm,
don't do that. We just rush out, buy a ukulele. I'm going to learn the ukulele, and then we don't know enough about the ukulele. And
right,
then we find out that it's too hard, or it's not what we imagined, or it's not, and things
right.
fall apart. Things fall apart and we quit because we didn't know enough going in.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Mm. So you went back at 70
Yes,
and climbed that mountain again, El Capitan.
I did. I
Now, did
did.
Alex go with you that time?
No, no, this was, that I turned 70 in whatever it was,
3
21,
years ago. Yeah.
2021. In 2019, I had major surgery on my left foot, and there was a lot then after that that I couldn't do. My foot couldn't bend certain way. A lot of things I couldn't do that were required for climbing or for running or for just about anything, for living. And all the limping started doing bad things to my knees. And so
Oh,
I was in
yeah.
a bad way. And so the next year after that, COVID struck, shut us all down. Couldn't do anything anywhere with anybody. And then
Mhm.
the following year was my 70th coming up. Well, I wanted to say 70 is a milestone.
It is a
I know a
milestone.
lot of people who did not get to 70, growing old is a privilege.
It is.
Growing old is a privilege. This is the only country I know of where people fear it. Growing old is a privilege, and we should honor it, not fear it. And I was turning 70. I felt great, except for my foot, my lungs. I mean, various parts of me weren't. But I wanted to celebrate. Well, I couldn't go to a restaurant with my friends. COVID. Couldn't have all my friends over to my house. COVID. What could we do? Well, outdoors was okay in COVID.
Outdoors was fine.
Yeah, yeah. So I invited several of my older women friends, not younger than me, but older women, who are climbers, and I invited them to go do El Cap with me. And now, for a climber, El Cap is the mecca of climbing, and all climbers dream of someday getting on El Cap. And so I offered them this gift, if you will. Yes. Birthday
Uh-huh.
gift from me to you. Come, I know how to do it. I've done it. I have young people willing to help us to carry stuff and things to lead. So they came, and there were 11 of us who went up the day.
Wow.
Yeah, there were 4 of us old ladies, and since I had done it up and down in a day with Alex, I had never had the experience of sleeping up there. I or seeing the sun rise or set, up there. So I wanted that, and so I decided we would camp on the top, you know.
So you
So
made
that
it to the top in one
to the
day.
top in one day, and then we slept. We ate, we slept, we did all that, and then we came back down the next day. So this involves carrying a lot of stuff. especially for older women, we need a little mattress on the ground. We need a bag to sleep in. We need
Sure,
food,
sure.
need water, maybe a change of clothes. If something gets wet or dirty, whatever you change, that's very heavy. And I invited for youngins, for young climbers I knew, and they knew others who were willing to come help. And so they each carried they call it a haul bag. It's a big cylindrical bag, almost as tall as me. And you put all that stuff in that bag, and then you haul it up. You carry it when you're walking on your back, and when you're doing the vertical parts, you haul it up on ropes. Yeah, and some of them were really heavy. And
Oh,
unbeknownst to
jeez.
me, the guy who carried mine, my main lead climber, the guy who happened to be the videographer of my movie, in fact,
Hmm.
he carried my bag, and he carried up champagne for my birthday,
Oh, wow.
which
Wow.
is very heavy in bottles
Yes.
and glasses to drink and cake.
Wow. And cake.
Okay, little
Oh
cakes for
my God.
everybody. So yeah, I'll
Wow.
never top that as a birthday party. Never.
No, that's fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, with El Capitan, most people, and tell me if I'm wrong, Deirdre, but most people sleep hanging. They don't make it even to the top in one day,
Right.
right?
You
They
see
just,
what they call portaledges.
yeah.
Portaledge. Yeah.
So all you terrific, amazing older women climbed the top in one day.
Yeah, yeah. I would have slept in a portaledge. What I wanted to try with Alex, but he didn't want to carry all that stuff with us. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So if you could leave us all with one piece of advice, like maybe a overarching philosophy or one piece of advice to growing older, what would that be?
Well, that's a toughie.
I know. There's
Toughie.
7 steps, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna break it into 2 bits of advice.
okay.
First of all is turn off the media.
Mm,
I mean, turn off all this advice, this unwanted advice. If you want to sleep better, take this drug. If you want to feel better, take this drug. If you want to embark on exercising, see your doctor first. I mean, only you know what your body can do. I mean, obviously, if you have, a broken leg or severe arthritis, yes, you're not going to, go up and climb rocks. But all things being equal, only you know what you're capable of, and don't let the naysayers influence you.
mhm,
That's what we're the most guilty of in this society. And the other part is journal. Journal. All the things I've done required a lot of talking to myself, figuring out, do I really want this badly enough? If
mhm.
so, what are the steps? If so, who's going to help me? Who's going to hinder me? What is going to help or hinder? Do I really have the time for this? Do I know how to go about setting a schedule to do this? Like running a marathon, you have to have a schedule, a training schedule, they call it. And there are schedules available out there for you to copy. I couldn't copy theirs exactly because I had too many jobs. I was a single mother. I was too busy, but I tweaked them a little bit. I found them online, found them word of mouth, and tweaked them to fit my lifestyle.
Fit you.
Only
Yeah.
you know what you can do. But journaling can be the key to figuring all of this out. A journal is the best shrink in the world, and it's always open, always available. You set the schedule, you can figure out whatever you want. So those two things together are very powerful tools.
Yeah. Yeah. I so agree with you on the journaling too, because
Mhm.
that has helped me through so many things, so
Yeah,
many times.
yeah.
Ah, what an inspiring story, Deirdre. And I can't wait to see where you go next. And like I said, I do want to have you back to talk about your new book, which is called Success in 7 Steps. So I
Mhm.
definitely want to have you back for that.
Okay.
Let me give people a couple of ideas where they can connect with you. Deirdre has a blog. Your pictures are amazing. Do you
Oh,
carry
they're beautiful.
I mean, do you carry a camera or is that with your phone?
No, it's my phone. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So she has a blog. It's called Dear D-I-E-R Drew, D-R-E-W.
No, that's my first name and then my last initial, Deirdre W.
Oh, okay. Well, spelling it, it looks like Deirdre. So it's Deirdre, DIERDREW.US. So that's her blog. And then you can also follow her on Instagram at Deirdre _ and I'm going to spell your middle name. It's WOLOWNICK _ Honnold, HONNOLD. So you can find her on Instagram there. And again, amazing pictures.
Yeah, the iPhone takes great pictures.
Yeah, and you go to great places. So
yeah, right. That too.
That makes the difference too. I also want to remind you to subscribe to the Thriving Through Time newsletter. And you can do that at bit.ly/navigateaging. So who are we talking to next week? Next week, Becky Blue is my guest. And she is a former geriatric nurse turned author. She took up ballet at 60. So she wasn't climbing rocks, but she was dancing. And is redefining aging with an explorer's mindset. She has a book called Turning the Magic and Mystery of More Days, which has a lot of different kind of thought questions at the end. So we'll be talking to Becky. And I'm part of this collaboration group. And as part of that, I want to recommend a new podcast called agelesstraveler.com. And Ageless Traveler is on a mission to make sure that you never stop traveling. It is hosted by Adrienne Berg, and she brings you useful information on trips, tips, and hacks for lifelong travel and breaks down barriers to solo, intergenerational, and traveling at slower paces. So you can check out her website, agelesstraveler.com, for access to a lifetime of travel. She's got several trips coming up, but she does some really interesting stories on her podcast. So check that out. Deirdre, thank you so much. This has really been not just a delight, but super inspiring. So thank you for that.
We're more than welcome. My pleasure.
And I will be in touch about scheduling the next one.
Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.